Beep boop.
Beep boop, beep beep, boop boop, beep beep, doo doo.
We watched The Creator.
We did.
There's Saw X out, there's Paw Patrol, but we saw the one that studios are clearly trying to bury.
Yeah. And also, I messaged you guys last night. Wild that a movie that was clearly shot for, you should see this on the biggest screen possible, is now being pushed away by Saw X. Saw 10? Saw X. Well,
Saw 10X.
Saw 10X, because that one's playing on IMAX theaters and large format theaters. And because, who doesn't love to watch someone rip an eyeball out?
Just on the biggest screen possible. But yes, anyways, this is directed by Gareth Edwards, who did Rogue One, who did Monsters.
Did Godzilla.
He's very well known for his work in visual effects. Monsters is what got him on the map, and then he did Rogue One and Godzilla, and those just look amazing. This is no different, but he shot this on an $80 million budget, but it looks like a $200 million budget movie.
He's a great, most of the Monsters, but I still think even Rogue One, it's a Star Wars movie, so of course it's going to have a huge budget, but like doing more with less.
Yes.
And
so it stars John David Washington as Joshua. He's tasked with finding the AI's like big weapon. Turns out it's a kid, and that's all I'm gonna tell you, because to tell you more, it also stars Gemma Chan, Ken Watanabe, Allison Janney, and then the kid Alfie is Madeline Una Voiles. Voiles.
That sounds right. She's really great.
Yeah, their first acting role. So and it deals with it's AI panic, which is all the rage right now. Mission Impossible did it earlier this year. It is a very routine story. But I don't think that's why you go to watch this movie, because a lot of sci-fi movies are routine stories. If you think about it, it's what you do with the set pieces and the environment that make most sci-fis great. I will say I enjoyed it a lot. I think the visual effects are great, but the story is very routine.
I want to get this out of the way. It looks incredible. This may be one of the best looking movies of the year. And again, that's not comparing it to like Killers of the Flower Moon or anything like that. But when we have things like a Mission Impossible, Fast X. I was like, what was the other X movie? Fast X, The Flash. It is big budget movie making that looks insane. It is wild what he's able to do with, one, the budget, and two, just you're looking at stuff, you're like, how does he do this? Because everything looks so seamless. There's not a shot in this movie where you're like, well, that looks a little wonky. It is the full 2 hours, it looks like they got robots. They're like, yep, robots are here. And you're like, okay. Cool. But it looks great.
And you feel transported into the world. And that's what you want with sci-fi.
I do think, and I love Edwards. There's all this stuff with Rogue One. He seems to be a really good sport about what happened. I think he kind of understands. I do think, the story is compelling. It's really engaging. You can follow it really easily. It's emotional. They really pull at the heartstrings at times. But I think you were talking about sci-fi just, can be very tropey. I do think sometimes sci-fi should, it's clear that he wants to say something about something. And by the end, I'm like, I don't really know what he wanted to say. You get the surface level of what he wanted to say, but you're like, did he nail it? But that doesn't stop it from being a really entertaining movie.
No, right. Because it's very anti-war. It's very racism is bad, which a lot of robot movies tend to do. It's very imperialist, anti-imperialist and stuff like that. But also it's got some corny characters like Allison Janney and her sidekick.
Who rule?
No, they're great.
They're great.
But they're just very corny.
It's straight from the Avatar Stephen Lang universe of just just be mean.
And have a scar.
And maybe a cool beard. It's using a thing that we're very uncertain about at this moment in time. There will be a million write-up pieces about AI and the creator and whatnot. It is so strange and crazy that's happening right now, but that okay, we are, this idea of like anti-racism and anti-imperialism, and what we're using to hit that home is something that we are like not sure we trust fully yet. And so it is like there's like this kind of, I think like 10 years ago, even 5 years ago, this movie plays a little bit different, or like 10 years from now, maybe it plays a little different. Yeah, we're in this like really weird moment where you're like, I get what you're saying, but also we are a little freaked out by some of this stuff too, and it can, again, it doesn't take away from the movie, but if you love like sci-fi, if you're like really, if you're like, oh, that's my favorite genre, and like, oh, there's some like Isaac Asimov, like you're just like, you could see where some people would be like, I don't know, Before
I watched the movie, I binged a bunch of Isaac Asimov interviews, especially when he was on David Letterman, and so he was talking about Star Wars in those, and he was like, I like how they just went for it.
Yeah.
And so I think if Isaac was still alive, he would enjoy this type of movie. And that's a good sign for a sci-fi movie. I think this movie's going to age better.
Yeah, I do too.
Especially because we're going to talk about AI more and more. People are going to be like, well, the creator in Mission Impossible, they talked about it already. But also I like inside the universe of the movie, they set up that it started like in the 50s.
Yeah.
So it gives you that pulpy sci-fi stuff that you like people in the 50s and 60s got straight off the bat. Yeah. Whereas we see it now and we're like, oh, this is great.
Well, this takes place like 50 years in the future from now.
So it goes like through 100 years of history at the very beginning of the movie. It reminds me of Beckett. I know you haven't seen Beckett, but that also stars John David Washington. In that movie, he starts from a very small place and then ends up in a very huge place by the end of the movie. That happens in this one too, where you start at this very small, like he's doing this thing, and then you end up there and you're just like, what? How did we get here?
It does, There's some jumps. I do think there's some like twists that you minor twists that you may or may not see coming, but also some of them work, some of them don't totally work, or maybe it would have served the movie better if it was introduced a little earlier, and so maybe that would have helped the character development a little bit better too. But it is.
I still like
it. Yeah. Oh, and was I like on the verge of tears at the end? I mean, like we both have daughters, and like there's just something about like dad figures and daughter figures, and when they're put in jeopardy or they're forced, you're just like, I mean, there's a scene in this movie that like I was. It's very early on, but there's like that imperialism that kind of there's taken over, like they're kind of taking this village hostage, and this little girl's just crying, and I'm like, I just can't watch this much this kind of stuff anymore.
If it's very much shades of Vietnam War. I mean, they make it very clear this is like commentary on like big countries moving into smaller countries and just sort of just taking over. And we've got countless movies about the Vietnam War. I don't think this one does it as good as some of the other ones.
Well, and I think too, like that's kind of been the things. Like Rogue One very much feels like a Vietnam movie. Like there's all like it just kind of seems like I am interested now to be like, okay, what does Gareth do now? Now that he is maybe out of this weird purgatory that he or someone else put him in, which I don't understand. But like I want to see more. I want to see him do like something cool with a small budget that isn't maybe a big sci-fi movie. Can we go how many, because I just want to give this guy kind of a shout out too. How many great Sturgill Simpsons out of 10 would you give it?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I would give it 8 out of 10.
Yeah.
I really like sci-fi. So for me, as long as the sci-fi is compelling enough, it's at least 3 stars.
Yeah.
Which translates to 6 out of 10. But this, I really like the elements, the world building. So I'm giving it 8 out of 10 solely on that. The story is very basic, but sometimes that's all you need.
I'm going to give it a 7.5 Sturgill Simpsons out of 10. Really, it's a lot of fun. It's engaging. You're never bored. There's something lacking, but I do, and another weird shout out to Gareth to be like, the people he chooses for some of these roles kind of throw you off balance. Like, not just Sturgill Simpson, who is legitimately great.
He's good.
He's like,
but he's barely in it.
He's barely in it, but I get it. Like, but he is really great in what he's in. But then even like the general, I mean, Allison Janney, to play a villain is very odd and it's awesome. But the general, that that guy that we all know from The Witch, the dude just has the gruffest voice. He's like, this is not your first pick as a general. And there's something that like, it feels so world building, but also off kilter that like, it's kind of fun to be like, this is different. This is like, it's just very interesting. So, it's just a cool movie.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's what we say. Like, it's a cool movie. If you like sci-fi, go see it. If you don't want to see Saw or Paw Patrol,
I think it's a very good movie to go see.
You should go see it. And yeah, see it on the big screen.
Yeah. See it. Well, if you can find it on the big screen, good luck.
Yeah, good luck. Un esercito di prodi